Hello and welcome to Word&Image, a tutorial for Illustrator, a basic introduction to Illustrator, to help with the use or the completion of your typeface assignments. And here we go. So we're going to start with creating a new doc or document, and we can take a little tour of the Illustrator workspace with that. One thing I want to make you guys aware of starting off is that when I give instructions in my written instructions, this is the way I will present them so that you know how to find something in a Adobe product. So these little chevrons point us, or less than, greater than, wedges will point us in the direction. So window type character would simply be go up to the main menu, find the window main drop-down menu, go down until you find character. In this case, actually, you have to go to type and then over to character. Boom. And then we open up the character panel right here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That is my use. That's how I write up instructions. Okay, let's start a new document. So we go up to the main menu, we file, new, and you'll end up in the new document panel, and you want to go to print. We are going to be doing printing projects in this class, so you want to make sure you're making designs that are print ready. So let's go to print. They have a letter template, an A4 and a few others, but we have a specific size we want to do for the typeface portraits. So let us go into here. First step in the new document is you could put a name in. And I like to start off my documents with, in this class, you should start all of your documents with your last name and then the name of the assignment. And that way I know at a glance which files are which when I get a bunch of files in. First step after that is to choose to use inches as your measuring unit in your document so that you don't have to work with pixels and points or any oddball typographic measurements. So inches, and that'll make it a lot easier for you to dial in your sizes. We're going to make a portrait formatted page that's going to be 10 inches wide and 16 inches deep, which will fit on a tabloid, 16 inches deep, which will fit on a tabloid piece of paper. And then we just simply go create. And we should get, yes, a a brand new document. You'll notice that there are two tabs here. You'll see if you have multiple documents open. This is consistent through all of the Adobe products pretty much, that there is different tabs, or you can have tabs for your different projects that you have open. Looking at my page, we have a gray area and a white area. And in Illustrator, the gray area is the pasteboard. In Design and Photoshop, they are also called the pasteboard. That is off the page. It's not where anything prints, so anything that's on the pasteboard does not print. And the white area, is the artboard. In Illustrator, it's called the artboard. In InDesign, it'll be called a spread or a page. Okay, so we've got that. What else do we got going on here? We have the main menu bar where all of those drop-down menus can give you some more functionality with Illustrator. We have the application bar up here on the top, which has a home button if you want to go back home to get back to the home base where you can make a new file or see what other files you've got going on. We have the let's see. Well, while we're in the application bar, let's make sure that for this project, we are going to switch our workspace and make sure we are using the typography workspace. What that'll do is that'll just set up the document to have all of the typography related tools at your ready. So your paragraph panel, your character panel, the properties panel, a few other these things that would be useful if you were doing a typography heavy project. Okay, we have we got that. We've chosen the typography. So the control panel, which is this strip along here, this strip is the control panel, and it's a very useful panel. Depending on what tool you're using or what object you are selecting on the page, this will change in order for you to have access to certain tools that will be useful. Like now that I have a rectangle selected, it's giving me the option to give it a color fill and a different color for the stroke, affect how thick the stroke is, what color it is, and a bunch of other things that we can play around with just right off the bat, because that is the object that I'm selecting and the type of tool that I'm using. So keep an eye up there. If you're using the character tools or the type tools, it'll be typeface related. It's a useful strip to keep track of. The control, let's see. Oh, and then down here, of course, we have a bunch of panels that will run down the right side of your window, depending on what workspace we're in. And there'll be a thin one here that has some quick guys to get at that don't need a lot of room. So you can just open those up really quick. And they have little sub panels in there, little tabs that you can get at. The properties panel is a very useful panel. It is much like it's a much more powerful version of the control panel up here, this control strip. Whatever you happen to be selecting, it will give you a lot of functionality for things you can do to that particular object that you're working with. So keep an eye on that properties panel. I believe this is another panel that's open typically with the typography layer, typography workspace, and it's the layers panel. We won't need that for this assignment per se. Some people who are familiar with layers from working in Photoshop and some other programs or in Illustrator might find it useful. I'm not going to go into it today. All right, so we've got panels. We've, of course, got all the tools running down the side here. And we're going to talk about a few of these useful tools for this assignment. If you have the default settings for this, if you hover over any of these objects, it should give you a little demo option for every tool. So if you leave your cursor over it and hang over it in a fresh version of the of this Illustrator, you should get access to these things. If that annoys you, you can switch that off in the preferences area. Okay, I think it's time to get back to the demo. So let's get back to my demo page. All right, so we've done that. Another thing to do now that we got a more complex page here is to realize that one of the first tools you're going to be finding useful is the navigating tools. And that is right here underneath the magnifying glass right here. If you click on it and you hold it, any of the tools in this stack of tools that has a little a white triangle in the bottom corner, if you click and hold it, it has other tools under that tool maker. And I'm going to start with the zoom tool, which is useful. We're not going to use the rotate tool, but we will use the hand tool and the zoom tool. Very useful. All right, so the zoom tool zooms. And if I want to unzoom, you can swipe it back and forth like this with your mouse to zoom in and out to get to where you a size you want to work at. But also you might want to be able to just pan around to see something that's off your screen. So that's what the hand tool is for. So click on the hand tool, or click, hold, grab the hand tool, or you can just hit the H key, and now you can pan around. Okay, so I find it very annoying to have to pan around, to go and grab a tool when I don't have to. So if you remember that, you know, if you hit the Z button or the Z key, you can get the zoom tool, and the H key, you can get to the hand tool very quickly. But there's even a quicker way to get to both of those tools. And for the zoom tool, if you hold down the space bar and then you hold down the Command or the Apple button, you get the zoom key, and you can go very quickly through there. For the hand tool, let's go to something else so we don't have the hand tool open. All you have to do is hold down the space bar, and you get the hand tool, which allows you to pan around and get to other stuff that's on your page. All right. Those are the navigation and the basic anatomy of Illustrator. So we've gotten through our Illustrator tour. Now let's get to some of the more specific tools. And we're going to start talking about the Type tool and the Character panel. We've just opened the Character panel. It's ready to go for us. I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to just put it and let it sync. And when that blue, when you hold it over this sidebar here and the blue starts to glow, you can let it go and it will minimize and go right there. The Type tool is right here. If you click on it, you'll see you have three options. We are only interested in the first one for this project, and we'll probably not get to the other two in this assignment or in the course. But you can get a lot done with this one Type tool. This is really all you need for most of the stuff you're doing. All right, so one of the differences of how this Type tool works compared to InDesign and perhaps Photoshop, is that there are two ways to create an object that is for text, live text, a font. The first option is to click and drag to create a frame in which the type will fit and will be contained, so that when I add some more, it will wrap automatically inside that frame. And with the use of some of the selection tools, you can make that frame bigger or smaller. But you'll notice if it gets smaller and the type isn't fitting, that you cut off the type and it's missing. It's gone to overset. This is useful, but probably not useful for our assignment today. I just want you to be aware there's this way of creating a type document or a type object or text object. But then if I use the text tool again and I simply click, I do not drag, it will create a point type object, and that as opposed to the area type object. The point type object will allow me to just keep on typing, and it will go on forever until we run out of pasteboard. And when I hit the return, it'll go to the next layer, next level, or the next line. And so it allows you to have an open-ended sort of thing. And for this project, that's probably best. And that's how I have constructed my, I'm going to hit delete to get rid of that. Another quick tip for you guys is that when you're in any other tool and you want to get to the selection tool, if you hold down the command key, you get the selection tool. And when you release, I go back to the tool I was using, which happens to be the text tool. All right, so I've got my text selected. Now we're going to need the character panel. So let's go Window. I know where it's on the sidebar here, but I want to remind you that if you need to get to any of those tools for text, it's under Type, Window, Type, and Character. Not Character Styles, but Character. All right, and here's my character panel. I'll click and drag it out so that it is its own freewheeling panel. And what we want to do here is walk you through a character panel. So sometimes when you open up the character panel, the hide options might be on and you might not have as much options open. So if yours looks like this, click on this little drop-down menu in the top right corner and go to show options, and you get all of your options for the character panel. Notice also that a lot of these options are available up here, including some others from the paragraph panel, which is something we'll talk about more going forward in other assignments. We don't need it for this project. All right, the character panel contains all of the tools you need. Some of them you'll be familiar with from working in Word and other programs. You're probably familiar with choosing a typeface or a font. Well, that's where you do it here. You can do it here, you can do it up here. But you can, if you want everything contained in an easy to understand typeface related panel, that's the character panel. And that has to do with sizing, styling, and dealing with spacing in typefaces. All right, so you can click and just choose a typeface here. Yeah, and notice I have already typed up my alphabet. You guys will type up your alphabet to create your starting alphabet for this. I'll show you another trick in a second to get the all caps in. All right, so we have the option. We can just go down here and it's going to show you, in this case, it's showing me, let me see if I can get this to be a little taller so I can see everything. You'll see that as I go down, I have a wheel on my mouse so that I can go up and down with the wheel on my mouse so that I don't have to do that manually. If you don't have a wheel, you can of course use this little guy on the side and drag that up and down, click and drag that up and down. But you'll see that as I go along, I change the typeface and I see what it looks like. I also see miniature, I see samples in the sample in the center column there. So I'm getting all those options there. I'm going to look for, I can also just type in if I know the font I want. So in this case, I think I want to use Futura. So I start typing and it'll take us right to Futura. I'm going to take a Futura medium. Let's take Futura medium. Sure. It's a geometric sans serif typeface, and it can be useful because it has geometric shapes. Basically, the whole typeface has been based on geometric shapes of one kind or another, circles and squares and triangles and that sort of thing. All right, so I'll choose that by clicking on it. If you want to see all of the different classifications for a typeface or for fonts that are available on your computer, you can click on this and you can go to this little funnel here, which will funnel things for you, and click on this, which will open up a mini panel. This mini panel is going to resemble the classifications that are available when you go to the Adobe font website. With your account with Adobe, you should be able to access fonts on the Adobe fonts.com website. And their classification system is simplified compared to all the different classifications of fonts that could be out there, but it's out there. And it's available, and it really does simplify things down. And I'll show you here is this typeface classification is from our handout that came with your syllabus that talks about terms and glossary for typography, and that is based on this classification. We have sans serif. If you hover over all of these things, of course, it'll give you little tooltips that pop up. This is a serif. This is a slab serif with those thick square serifs. We've got all of our scripts under here, and then we've got our black letter, which is a throwback to the days of Gutenberg and to the birth of typefaces when the first letterpress was invented. Then we have something called monospaced. Monospaced typefaces are inspired by typewriter fonts, and their redeeming quality, if you would call it that, is that they're all the same width. The characters are all more or less the same width, so they will stack nicely if you're trying to add up figures, like for math and science and that sort of thing. So I don't often use monospace typefaces, but they're there and they have their own category because they in certain industries, they're very popular. Handwritten, handmade typefaces under this squiggle of an M. And then the final one is decorative typefaces, which deal with a lot of display typefaces that are ornamental and meant to grab attention and are funky and interesting sometimes or dramatic. So So if I was to try and find my way to that Futura, I would click on the M, and I would go down to it would narrow my it would just narrow it down to just my fonts that I have that are sans serif typefaces that don't have serifs, and I can find all of those guys down, and I could dial down to the Fs, and there's my Futuras right here. Now, one of the annoying things and things you should realize is that if you have used the filter, you can also check a bunch of things about properties, how wide the characters are, how bold they are, that sort of thing. But if you've done all of this, you've got all these buttons clicked, and you just want to get back to all of your fonts again, just remember hit clear all right here, and it will get rid of the funneling and the filtering for you. For that matter, all right, so I've got my Futura. There's also a bunch of styles available under different fonts. Not every font family has a bunch of styles, but this Futura has these styles available. I was able to drill down right to the medium using just the typeface guy up here, the typeface field. But you can also start playing around with seeing what these guys look like. So, when you're looking for a font to do your project, you will play around with this, go down, look at all the typefaces, see something that strikes you as being something you can work with aesthetically, and then choose that typeface, apply it to your apply that, and maybe apply whether it's going to be a bold or a regular weight or a condensed or something like that. I'm going to choose the medium. I'm going to select some of this type, and I'm using the type tool again, and I can click and drag over it to select it. I can also double click to click a single letter, or I can triple click to select the whole line with the type tool. I want to select that whole line, and then I want to go to edit, copy, and then I'm going to click in here with just click once so that my cursor's flashing at the end of that Z, and then I'm going to hit return. So I go to the next line, and then I'm going to hit Command V or paste. And that will give me another line of the copied text that I brought down. Then I'm going to click and drag over that to select it. And then I'm going to go back to my character panel, and I'm going to make it all caps so that I don't have to type out those caps manually, which would be tedious, and we don't want to do anything that's tedious. All right, well, we don't have to. All right. And then, of course, you might want to make sure that these are solid black. This is where either the properties panel will come in handy or the character panel. You'll see that these fill, this guy here is the solid square is the fill. There's other one that looks like it's got a line through it, means there's no stroke applied, and you don't want a stroke applied. You just want a fill applied, and it's already filled. And make sure it's solid black, and that will work fine. Okay, so we're great. We don't need to play around with anything else except for, oh, well, we might want to know how big the typeface can get. So let's go here, and we will change the size, and you get all of these options for size. You might want to start a little bit big with these first ones, up in the 30s perhaps. You can then make them larger if you need to. Yeah, cool beans. So I've got that big. There's a lot of other controls here we don't need to know about this week. We will start to learn some of these other ones as we go forward, but the size is important. Just remember, with the size, so the ones we're concentrating on choosing a typeface with this field, choosing a style under that typeface or font here, and then sizing it, and occasionally maybe making all caps. The rest of these you can leave alone for this project, so you can ignore the rest of those guys. I've got these guys chosen, but I wanted to say one last thing about the size. You'll notice that there are some definite sizes that are listed here between 72, which is 72 points, which is roughly an inch in height using typographic measurement. But one thing you should know is that you don't have to settle for these preloaded sizes. You can put in a 38 if you wanted to have your type be 38 points big. It can go up to, I think, like 5,000 points or 3,000 points in size. So it is totally customizable by you. All right, so we've got our type. We've made our, it's colored, we've styled it, we've chosen a typeface, and we're ready to go to the next step of the project, which is to make the type into paths. And we will not need the character panel anymore for that. All right, making type into paths. We're going to work smaller here, although we made that type nice and big before. Let's go in there. We're going to use, I'll just do it up here. I can do it all up here again. Futura, medium. I want it to be 30-ish. I actually want it to be 30. So I'll make it 30. And there you go. And let's get that guy here. All right, let's pull back a little bit with the zoom key. And that's a little bit too big to fit on my page. So we'll make it a little bit smaller. And you can click up and down with these little guys here. All right, now it's on my page, it can fit. We're gonna make type into paths now. So once you've chosen your typeface, set up your alphabet, you got all the characters right there, I always advise that you make a copy and put it on of the live type and put it on your pasteboard. So we're going to say edit, copy, and then we're going to hold down the space bar, move over to the pasteboard, and we're going to commit to paste that there. So now we have the live font, because the next step is going to make this no longer a live typeface that can have the font changed or the size changed with the character panel. It is going to turn it into an object that is just a path instead of a live font text object. So with that in mind, you want to have a copy just in case you lose something, just in case you change your mind about the typeface that you want to use. Or the weight you want to use. Any of these things will require, hopefully, being able to back up and get to a fresh copy of your alphabet. All right. Make sure you select with your selection tool. That's important, not with your type tool. You want to select with your selection tool. And then you want to go up to the type menu and come down to something called Create Outlines. When you create the outlines, you'll notice that something's changed. Now there is a little outline around it, and it'll do this if you, depending on how you select it, it'll show you all of these little anchoring points that mean that these is now a bunch of paths instead of a typeface. Now you want to ungroup because right now you can't grab the individual letters easily. So you want to ungroup it. So go up to Object and Ungroup. And when you ungroup, you can click off of the object and then click back in. You can select individual letters in and characters in there and copy them and paste them. So you might grab an O, copy, O, copy, and then click somewhere and hit the paste. I'm going to hit Command V to paste. That's another very useful tool, or quick, if you haven't already learned in the universal language of computers, the quick way to cut and paste, you should look that up because that is incredibly useful and it'll save you some time. All right, and I also, just because I'm paranoid and retentive, I will also make a copy of this alphabet object, or rather edit, copy, and I will put that on my desk, on my pasteboard, just so that I have that, just in case I delete a character or something like that. So when we've got these guys selected, you'll notice that the edges are showing up. And that might be annoying when you are working with these objects. So you would click on there, and you might not want to see the bounding box and all these objects that are getting in your way. If you don't want to see that when you're working with the individual letters, then you can go to View and Hide Edges. And let's see. Nope. All right. Let's go to Hide. We can also hide the bounding box. So you can go and hide the bounding box, and that should So now, yes, we're just seeing these guys. We're not seeing the bounding box. You might want the bounding box back when you're sizing things up and whatnot. So you can go back and show the bounding box. All right. I'm going to keep it on because we'll need it for something shortly. All right. So that is how you make your type into the paths. And now they're individual paths that can be shaped and manipulated. And we'll go now to the next stage. Maybe I will select all of these guys by grabbing with the selection tool and dragging, clicking and dragging over everybody. I can grab them all and move them around when there are a bunch of loose objects. Okay. All right. So let's go down to experimenting. All right. We're going to go down to experimenting and let's take a look at what we're going to do here. I've already hid my bounding boxes, which was view, hide bounding boxes, and view, hide edges. We've already done that. That's a little redundant. All right. And I've chosen a bunch of letters just that look cool, that might be interesting to work with. They've all been turned into outlines and paths, vector paths, and they're ready to go. Now let's talk a little bit more about the selection tool, because the selection tool can do some cool stuff for you folks. All right, so first thing to know about the selection tool is that if you're, it can affect the shape of your object very easily. So be careful that you don't distort your letter forms accidentally by accidentally grabbing one of these anchors and messing it up by accident. But let's see, we're moving it around, just clicking and moving it around with the black selection tool, not the direct selection tool. And I can move it around. But let's say you want to keep it snapped to a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angles. So you will hold down the Shift key. The Shift key is a very important key to keep remind yourself about. When I'm shifting, if I'm not holding down the Shift key, it can go anywhere. When I'm holding down the Shift key, it locks it on this line, or if I drag it this way, it locks it straight. So it goes in a straight line, or it can go in a 45-degree angle. So it can be useful to kind of lock it if you want it to go in a straight line. Let's say there were a few on the same, you had a few of these guys on the same line, and you wanted to keep them still on the same baseline, then holding down the Shift key will help you do that. It's a little fussy today. I think it's because these are kind of small on my page. All right, I'm going to select and delete that. Option click and drag is also important. So hold down the Option key, click, drag, you make a copy. Excellent. If you Option click, drag, Option click, drag, you can make a bunch of copies very quickly instead of cutting and pasting and that sort of thing. So that can be that can quicken your workload. Also, if you wanted to say have your go in a make copies but have them go in a straight line, hold down the Shift key while you're doing it and the Option key as you drag, and it will click and drag these guys in a straight line. Let's go up and down so we can see what that looks like when they go up and down. All right, so that will lock them into a one of these 45-degree or 90-degree angles when you're copying. So Option click drag will shorten copying for you, especially when you're just dragging things out of your alphabet. Hold down and drag out from your alphabet by holding down your Shift key, and you can grab a whole bunch of your letters that you want to play around with and have them ready to go. All right. Let's see. Oh, yes, we can see the bounding boxes. I'm going to need that shortly. Shift Option click drag, Shift Option click drag, Shift Option click. Yeah, I just showed you that. So that's Shift Option click drag. All right, dragging multiples. All right, so again, to drag multiples, you just click with your selection tool, drag over all of these loose guys, and then you can move them around. Now, let's say you've created something wonderful, and you're very happy with it, and you want it to stay together as an object. Well, then you might want to use Object Group. So no matter what you do, that sucker is going to stay together as a group until you tell it to ungroup. object ungroup, and then it's back to being individual characters or objects. All right, so that will help you guys out with that. All right, the scale tools and the manipulation tools. The scale tools, where are you, scale tools? They're so small. Oh, there we go. Scale, right here, scale tool. I click on that. I'm going to select an object first, and then, whoops, I'm going to select an object, and then, all right, I am scaling it. But remember, hold down the shift key. Not only will the shift key keep things that you're moving from deviating from certain lines, when you are sizing things up, if you hold the shift key and you carefully size it up and down by dragging, then the shift key will keep it from distorting the proportions. Just keep an eye on it, because sometimes it can get a little squirrely if you go, so you want to, just be careful when you're dragging. Yeah, see, it's a little squirrely still. Oh, don't do that. That's terrible. You don't want to do that to a poor letter form. They didn't do anything to you. Do not distort and destroy the original proportions when you're working with it. So you can do that with the scale tool, which is hitting the S on your keyboard will get you there quick. And also by hitting the R, you can go to the rotate tool, which might actually be the first tool in yours. If you've got a brand new default version of your Illustrator, it actually might have been the rotate tool you saw first. When you went over here, you might not have seen the scale tool first. So I apologize for that. The rotate tool is the first in the stack. We're going to be dealing with the rotate tool, the scale tool, and the reflect tool, but not the shear tool for this assignment. So here's the one that will rotate, and it rotates very simply. But if you hold down, I'm going to undo. If you hold down the shift key, it rotates again in 45-degree angles, so you can keep it locked in there if that's important to your design or your sanity. You like to have order. All right. Now that I've showed you these tools, these two tools in particular, I'll show you the reflect tool in a moment. But I want to show you that when I click back to my selection tool and I get the bounding box back, these anchor points allow me to do all the things that I was already doing by clicking over here and going to the rotate and the scale tools. So if you grab the corner and you hold down the shift key, you can scale. You can scale. But remember, hold down the shift key down. And if you hover near the corner of any of these guys, and you'll get this little rounded arrow icon or cursor, you can rotate. So you can skip, a lot of times, skip going to either of these tools if you have the bounding boxes available, and you can do all of these things that you wanted to do by sizing, scaling, and circling. Circling? No, it's called rotating. All right, so we've got a big D now. I think I'm going to undo a couple of these things to get it back to my so my D is straight up and down, because I want to reflect this tool, this D right now. So I'm going to go to back up here, hold it down, go to the reflect tool, which is the O on the key on your keyboard. And once I click here with that tool, and I start, it's very fussy. I don't like it much. Holding down the shift key helps, but it's very fussy. It's flipping things. It's flipping the object. It's flipping it, but it's very fussy. I don't like it. So the way I like to deal with it is to double click, select my object, make sure it's selected, then double click the reflect tool, and then you can choose to do it. Now, remember, keep your preview button on, and you can see what you're going to do. And you can reflect it vertically, horizontally. I want to do it horizontal. Is that what no, I want to do it vertical. I want to reflect it vertical, but I also want to make a copy instead of just turning the one I have. So I'm going to make a copy. And boom. So now I've got two of them. One's reflected on the other. And you'll notice if you try to do this with a lowercase b and a lowercase d, they may look a lot different if you tried to mirror them by putting them together, because you'll notice that these typefaces or these letter forms all have very subtle differences. So a lowercase b is not always just a reversed lowercase d. So I've got my two lowercase d's, and I can put them together to make almost like a little butterfly, or actually it almost looks like if I was to take it, take it and whoops, take it, select it all, group it, which is Command G can group it quickly, by the way. Then I'm going to rotate it by holding the Shift key down. Now I've got something that's starting to look a little bit like maybe a mosquito face. All right. What other tools do I want you guys to learn about? All right. Let's do some other cool stuff. Let's transform again. So if you use that trick that I just told you earlier about holding on the Option key with or without the Shift key and making a copy. There we go. If you make a copy like that by shifting and moving like that, then the computer or Illustrator can remember exactly what you did. So if you go up to Object and go to Transform and Transform again, or Command D, it will remember exactly how far you moved it and what direction you moved it. And it will make a perfect copy at the different distance. And so I'm going to just hit Command D, Command D, Command D. And instead of like a bunch of mosquitoes, I'm starting to make a pattern. I can grab that, all of those guys, Command G to group them. So now that they are a big old group, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to double click and make a copy with my reflect tool. And let's see what that looks like. Now I can put them together. And now I've got something that looks like it could be jewelry around the neck of somebody. It could be a pattern of some kind. Oh, why don't we do it here? I mean, this is the fun part of just recomposing these abstract shapes that once were letters, they still are, and then putting them together, repeating them, trying to shake it up so you no longer see them as letter forms and just see them as forms and patterns and plays of negative and positive space, negative and positive space, to create some interesting effects. And of course, I could grab all of these guys, hold down the Option key and make a copy and do that, and then hit Command D, Command D, Command D. But I don't want to cover all my other tool stuff up, so I'm not going to do that. But you can see how that would be kind of interesting. By the way, it will also work if you go to Rotate tool again. This is where you might actually want to use the Rotate tool. And you might actually want to double click on the Rotate tool itself. And it also has a copy option. So you could make a rotate the object slightly, make a copy so it remembers the old one, and then if you hit Command D, it will do that over and over again, and you can get a circular pattern of some kind, although there's a little bit more math involved in that to some degree, so that there might be not weird overlaps of your objects, but and weird negative spaces and mistakes in there, but it could be useful when you're creating a pattern and an object. All right, so let's get rid of all that. Select it all, hit delete. All right, we've done it all, except for now we've got some other tips. All right, so when you're working in Illustrator, one of the things that new people to Illustrator will drive them out of their minds is a phenomenon known as isolation mode. Isolation mode happens when you are clicking an object and you absent-mindedly or on purpose double click it. And then all of a sudden the whole page kind of grays out except for the object that you just clicked. This is so that you can isolate an object amidst a whole bunch of other pathed objects. Sometimes the designs in Illustrator often, it's not sometimes, often a design like what you're working on with your faces will be in amidst a whole bunch of other letter forms and shapes and things and objects and fills. And you might just want to be editing one small part of it. So double clicking on it will open it up into this thing. But often enough, this is irritating. And then you try and get out of it and you're clicking around. Why can't I get out of it? Just hit escape. And then you are free to touch everything else and be able to affect things. All right, so that's isolation mode. Watch out for it. It can be useful, but it can also be frustrating if you don't know how to get out of it. Aligning objects can be useful. Let's make a copy of this guy. And let's say I was working and I made a whole bunch of them, and I wanted to clean it up a little bit. So select all of them, drag and select, and then go up to Window, Align, and you get this little guy here. And these all tell you what's going to happen. You can kind of guess when you align these objects. If I do this, they're all going to align on the right side of all the objects on the right on the right side. This will center them all vertically. This will align them all on the left side of the object. I'm going to undo that. This will center them. This will right align them. What I want to do is I want to have them all line up on the bottom. So I can do that. And I'd like them to be spaced away from each other exactly. So some of these guys distribute the objects in even way so that there's an even space between them. Sometimes, yeah, for the most part, I think that works. Sometimes it gets a little funky depending on the shape of the objects you're working with. And that's aligning objects, and that can be very useful when you're trying to clean things up and get things to play nicely with one another. Let's close that down. I don't think we need that anymore. And selecting some hidden objects. Oh, yes, selecting. There's often times when you are missing objects and they're hiding. First way to figure that out is to view outline, to find out if you have a missing hidden object. So I'm going to get a little closer here. Whoa, that's too close. A little too close. I'm going to go to view outline. And what that does is that will turn all vector art, all paths into just outlines. This is different than turning a font into an outline. This just is a different way of viewing the page. And it turns all your paths into just simple outlines so that you can just see the outlines when you're looking at. But you also will notice that anything that is still a font, a live typeface, a font, is solid black. It's not an outline because it's not a path yet. But all these other letters on the right here are paths. So let's see. We've got this little guy there. We found him, and we can click on him because it's in outline mode, and we can save him and get him out of there. But we're going to get a little bit closer because when they're very small and you've got the bounding boxes, they can get fussy on you. All right, so I'm going to hit Command Y, which is the same as hitting View Preview. It turns it from outline to preview. Preview is when you can see all the artwork. And there's my little H that was missing because it was behind my big H. And then I found him. I found my missing piece. That reminds me that, when you are working, you might find that as you add new objects, one object you added, every time you add an object in a layer in InDesign or Illustrator, any of these programs really, it says, okay, this is the newest object in my stack of objects, and it's in front of everything else that I've created. So let's just make a box. This box is the newest thing on my page, and it is going to be in front of everything else on this layer. Remember, there are layers, and right now I've got a bunch of layers in this particular document. But in this particular layer, this guy is in front of just about everybody. So yeah, it's in front of everybody. And that could be a problem if you are working with letters and you want one letter that you're working with to be in front of another. Maybe not so much with these letters for this project right now, which are all going to be solid black, but in the next assignment, when we're working with grays and whites, you might want your gray letter to be in front of your black letter. So grab it, go to Object, go to Arrange, and bring to the front. And it gets in front. And that will untangle these guys for you. You could also just grab it, copy it, or cut it, and then paste it. And it is now the new object on the top of the list, top of everybody else. But he's on top of everybody. Yeah, he's in front of everybody now. So that's what an object arrange will do for you. It will it can disentangle some layered objects that are in the wrong stacking order for what you're working with. Okay, we're doing okay. We're almost done here. Last but not least, a little note about printing. When you guys print this assignment, the typeface portrait, it is slightly smaller than a tabloid piece of paper. That's on purpose because I want you to trim them down to the actual size. Size is a very important craft issue in graphic design and commercial art. You will often get non-standard sized pages that need to be trimmed down. And it's important that you work at the right size with your pages. And conversely, when you're working with these particular images, these portraits, sometimes you have an all white background and you don't have an obvious place where you will be cutting down to the 8.5 or well, the 10 by 16 inches tabloid page. So when you print, you can tell in Illustrator and InDesign and Photoshop to put trim marks on the page to show you where the edge of the page where your artboard is, so it makes it easier for you to cut things down. So to do that, we go to File, we go to Print, and we go in this little guy here. There's a bunch of fussy little, very, you know, you can get really fussy with printing. We only need to worry about one thing really with regards to this. You know, when you're printing, of course, you want to make sure you're sending it to the right printer in the lab. I'm not at the lab, so I can't send it to any of the lab ones here, but you want to make sure you're choosing the right printer. You want to make sure you're printing on the right size page, which would be a 17 by 11. I don't have that option right now, so you'll just have to, yeah, my printer can't print that big, so it's not giving me that option. But what I really want you to know about is marks and bleeds. If you hit this little guy here, trim marks, it's going to put little trim marks at the corners of the image. So when it prints, it will do this for you. It'll put these little guys in the corners of your page that you can use to line up and shear off the 1/4 of an inch around the edge of your piece that you should be removing before you hang it up on the wall for us for crit. Okay, thank you for your time and listening to all of this. If you have any questions, please let me know. Contact me at my email or see me in class. Hope you have a great day. Thanks.